خذوني إلى مرقد للحسين، خذوني إلى مرقد للحسين.
سلام على أطيب الأطيبين وارث المرسلين الإمام الحسين، غريب بوادي الطفوف، قتيل بظلم السيوف. خذوني إلى مرقد للحسين، خذوني إلى مرقد للحسين، خذوني إلى مرقد للذبيح، خذوني أضمد قلبا جريح. دعوني أناجي الشهيد الطريح، دعوني أقبل ذاك الضريح. خذوني إلى مرقد للذبيح، خذوني أضمد قلبا جريح. دعوني أناجي الشهيد الطريح، دعوني أقبل ذاك الضريح. لأبكي عليه وأهدي إليه دموع الأنين.
سلام على أطيب الأطيبين وارث المرسلين الإمام الحسين، غريب بوادي الطفوف، قتيل بظلم السيوف. خذوني إلى مرقد للحسين، خذوني إلى مرقد للحسين.
إن ذكرت الحسين الشهيد تفيض عيوني بالعبرات، وقلبي ينوح نواح الرثاء، وتبكي معي هذه الكلمات. ألا إن ذكرت الحسين الشهيد تفيض عيوني بالعبرات، وقلبي ينوح نواح الرثاء، وتبكي معي هذه الكلمات. يصيح الفؤاد أيا ابن البتول، ويا ابن خديجة والطاهرات.
سلام على أطيب الأطيبين وارث المرسلين الإمام الحسين، غريب بوادي الطفوف، قتيل بظلم السيوف. خذوني إلى مرقد للحسين، خذوني إلى مرقد للحسين.
لأي الأمور بكت كالنخيل، وراح من الحزن يبكي الفؤاد. لأي الأمور بكت كالرمال، وهذه التلال وهذا الجواد. لأي الأمور بكت كالنخيل، وراح من الحزن يبكي الفؤاد. لأي الأمور بكت كالرمال، وهذه التلال وهذا الجواد. فهل تعرفين بأن الحسين قتيل بلا ناصر أو معين؟
سلام على أطيب الأطيبين وارث المرسلين.
ثانية على حب الزهراء. خير ما نفتح به آيات بينات يتلوها علينا السيد الصغير ميكال. فليتفضل مصحوبا بالصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله الذي أنزل الكتاب بالحق والميزان وما يدريك لعل الساعة قريب يستعجل بها الذين لا يؤمنون بها والذين آمنوا مشفقون منها ويعلمون أنها الحق. ألا إن الذين يمارون في الساعة لفي ضلال بعيد. الله لطيف بعباده يرزق من يشاء وهو القوي العزيز. من كان يريد حرث الآخرة نزد له في حرثه ومن كان يريد حرث الدنيا نؤته منها وما له في الآخرة من نصيب. أم لهم شركاء شرعوا لهم من الدين ما لم يأذن به الله ولولا كلمة الفصل لقضي بينهم وإن الظالمين لهم عذاب أليم. ترى الظالمين مشفقين مما كسبوا وهو واقع بهم والذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات في روضات الجنات لهم ما يشاءون عند ربهم ذلك هو الفضل الكبير. ذلك الذي يبشر الله عباده الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات. قل لا أسألكم عليه أجرا إلا المودة في القربى ومن يقترف حسنة نزد له فيها حسنا إن الله غفور شكور. أم يقولون افترى على الله كذبا فإن يشأ الله يختم على قلبك ويمحو الله الباطل ويحق الحق بكلماته إنه عليم بذات الصدور. وهو الذي يقبل التوبة عن عباده ويعفو عن السيئات ويعلم ما تفعلون ويستجيب الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات ويزيدهم من فضله والكافرون لهم عذاب شديد. صدق الله العلي العظيم. أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد.
بسم الله. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. For those watching us online, for those here this evening, it should be noted that it's quite beautiful to see somebody of that age reading with makharij al-huruf, very well put. That said, you should not be intimidated, whether yourself or those younger generations that we will be raising. Learning Arabic is extremely important for the reasons of the doors that it opens for you within the Shia school of thought. So much of our knowledge, so much of what we do is written in that language. The translation movement throughout history happened from the people, the Arabs. They wrote so many of these wondrous pieces of knowledge. And just exploring a little bit more about nahu, sarf, I know this sounds like big words, but knowing a little more Arabic will allow you to read the Quran on a completely different lens. So do not be intimidated by young men reading so beautifully, and be encouraged that it's possible, even in a country surrounded by different languages, to enrich ourselves with even an additional language which is close to our heart. Before we continue, I was listening to a few different speakers last night, and something came up. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. This struck me as, well, I'll just tell you the story. We'll see how it strikes you as well. Imagine after what Sayyid was describing a few nights ago, with now that we're knowing, they found out that Muslim has passed away, he's been killed, right? In Kufa. The thousands that said yes from Kufa, they were to come and support Imam Hussain, no more coming anymore. They're not part of this. So now we're in that situation where the few people that are left, after Imam said, hey, if you don't want to come, you don't have to. You can split off from the convoy now, because we're going to our deaths. And then imagine that's the ambience at the moment. Push through a little bit, maybe a few hours, a few days. The situation in the camp with whoever was left, it was one of joy. How could that make sense? One of joy, smiles on their faces. They're throwing jokes with each other. And that reminds me about a few people that I met, some of them personally here today, when they were going through wars, even back home. We all come from countries that have went through war. Back home, the airplanes crossing the skies, and they know their death can happen at any moment, and they are happy because they know they're in the right place, in the right time, doing the right thing, dedicating all their efforts towards the Imam. That is a feeling of serenity, of peace, even when you know death at a moment's notice. So keep that in mind. This is how we should face our lives, inshallah. Without further ado, please let's introduce Sayyid Jaafar Al-Hasany. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. In the name of God, most merciful, ever merciful, and may God's peace and blessings be upon His holy Prophet Muhammad and the purified members of his household and progeny. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Brothers, sisters, respected viewers, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah wa ala al-arwah allati hallat bifina'ik. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. The questions that we asked ourselves in the previous night was whether Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam was successful in the mission that he undertook. And in order to answer this question, we said that we have to answer a previous question, which is, what was the main purpose of Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam? We saw that it was not political, that it was not entirely social or humanitarian, that he was certainly not seeking to escape with his life. It was not a survival mission. And we started to hinting at the answer. We did not give the full answer. Inshallah, today we're going to start to give the full answer to this question. There are different ways to look at how Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam was successful or not. We could use a host of different mechanisms to assess the success of the mission of the Imam. One of the best ones would be to look at what was the aftermath of Karbala. What were the repercussions? What were the consequences of Karbala? What happened in the Islamic world following the tragedy of Karbala? Did anything change or not? If we understand that, we start understanding the role that Karbala started to play the spark that Karbala became, even from just a historical and material perspective, even though we believe that Karbala goes way beyond the historical and material perspective. Following the tragedy of Karbala, there is a very large number of very serious events that took place immediately starting after the tragedy of Karbala and leading all the way to the collapse of Bani Umayyah. This period of time is a 70-year period of time. In those 70 years, there was a huge succession of very major events, one after the other. The common thread in all of these events is that they were all sparked by the tragedy of Karbala. Historically, the tragedy of Karbala, therefore, was very consequential, had a huge effect, huge impact, very far-reaching repercussions, historically, socially, politically, in that world. When we look at the tragedy of Karbala, we see that right away after, one of the major events that took place was an incident by the name of Al-Hara. Al-Hara is a catastrophe, a crisis that happened in Islamic history. It's a blemish, an embarrassment point in Islamic history. And I don't have time to go through the events of Al-Hara, but in very short, I'm going to go through the events and I will mention maybe 2 minutes of Al-Hara and I will leave you to do more research on it. I have spoken about it in the past in more detail. So I'll mention them very quickly and I'll come to add more points about some of these events. The event of Harra was extremely consequential. Followed by that, there were events that happened mostly in southern Iraq, in Kufa and Basra and elsewhere, and we're going to spend a little bit more time on those today. At about the same time, another revolution, another uprising erupted in Mecca under Abdullah ibn Zubayr. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes, not more. Following those events, there were other uprisings and revolutions that also began. Those were led by the sons of Imam Al-Hasan, the descendants of Imam Al-Hasan, and the descendants of Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam. The Sa'd al-Hasaniyya, the Hashimiyya Hasaniyya, led revolutions against Bani Umayyah, and on the other side, especially the sons of, starting with the son of Imam al-Sajjad Alaihissalam, Zayd Alaihissalam, Zayd al-Shaheed, he led a revolution and then his son continued with that revolution. These were revolutions that were happening all over the Islamic world, in succession, one after the other. Why? All of them triggered by the tragedy of Karbala. All of them starting to carry the same banner. We're going to talk about that banner today. It's an important banner. We have to keep it in mind. We'll come back to it later, inshallah. So we said one of the biggest events that happened right from the beginning was the event of Al-Hara. What is the event of Al-Hara? As I said very quickly, because this deserves its own whole, at least one lecture, if not more. As you know, the events of Karbala take place after the killing of Imam Hussein Alaihissalam, his companions, his family members. They take Imam al-Sajjad Alaihissalam along with the women and the children captives. They bring them to Kufa. In Kufa, there's a whole tragedy that happens. We won't go into the details right now. Very quickly. They bring 17 of the heads of the family members of Imam al-Hussein Alaihissalam along with the head of the Imam, as well as the captives, to Kufa. There are people who start to speak out, people wake up, consciousness start to appear, people start realizing what has happened in Karbala. Ibn Ziyad, who's the governor over Kufa, rushes, hurries to push the captives out. He chains them and he prepares the heads and he sends them to Damascus, to Sham, to the Khalifa, Yazid. They go to Damascus and over there, Yazid has prepared huge celebrations. Happiness and joy, a new Eid has appeared in the Islamic world for killing Imam Hussein Alaihissalam and his Ahl al-Bayt. Initially, this is what happens, and then people quickly start realizing, we saw a couple of stories related to that, people started realizing what has happened here, So the popular opinion starts turning against Yazid. So he changes his tone. He says, I actually didn't order the killing of Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam. It was Ibn Ziyad, the governor of Kufa. He took the decision all by himself, on his own. I have nothing to do with it. When in fact, if it was true, he would have done something to Ibn Ziyad, but Ibn Ziyad remained governor. In fact, he was brought in and rewarded very handsomely, and he grew in importance. In any case, so Yazid, in order to avoid any further backlash, he asked that the captives from the household of the Holy Prophet be brought back to Medina, but this time with a lot more respect. He gave them some gifts, he wanted to give them some money, and he told them when they go back to Medina, don't harm them, don't insult them, be respectful to them, to show that Yazid has nothing to do with this. Yazid is not trying to harm anyone from the household of the Holy Prophet anymore. When they reach Al-Madinah Al-Munawwara, it was really mainly Zainab Alaihissalam who began a whole mission of spreading an education campaign to spread the information and the consciousness and the awareness of the people. What happened in Karbala? What did they do to Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam? What did he try to do and what did they do to him? And then after killing all of the men, what did they do to the children? What did they do to the women? How they took them captives to Kufa and then to Damascus, and how were they treated? And this went on for a while. Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam, through the woman, Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam could not work outwardly in public. It would have been too difficult, too dangerous. So Zainab alayhi salam is the one who took on that mission. She worked through the woman to raise consciousness, to raise awareness and to educate. The governor of Medina wrote to Yazid telling him, she is turning all the people of Medina against you. What do you want me to do? I can't contain her. He told him, separate her from the people. So Sayyidah Zainab was taken out of Medina al-Munawwara, and here's where her history becomes murky. It was not clear, and that's why today Sayyidah Zainab has a place in Egypt, and a place in Damascus, and a place in Iraq, because most likely she was taken from land to land. In any case, we'll come back to that perhaps another day. The people of Medina started turning because of this spark generated by Karbala and the activity of Zainab alayhi salam. They turned against Bani Umayyah. They pushed Bani Umayyah out of Medina. They kicked out the governor, the Umayyi governor. Bani Umayyah, all of them went in hiding in a palace that they owned in Medina. This is when Marwan, who was the head of Bani Umayyah in Medina, he brought his woman and his children to the house of Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam. He told him, can I keep the rest of my family with you? The men, we can hide somewhere else. The people are going to kill us maybe. Can I keep my woman and my children with you, with your family? They had just contributed to killing the father and the whole family of Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam. Imam al-Sajjad said, yes, they're innocent. I have nothing to do with them. Bring them over. And he sheltered them in. The rest of Bani Umayyah hid in a palace. The rest of the people came to them. They made a deal at the end. They told them, we will not kill you if you swear to us that we will not contribute to furthering the degradation, furthering the power of Bani Umayyah against us. You will leave and you will stay out of everything that has to do with the Medina. You let us rule our lives by ourselves. They said, okay. So let them go. In the meantime, Yazid had prepared a huge army under a man by the name of Muslim, who was later called Musrif because of what he did to Medina, Muslim ibn Uqbah. He was sent with at least 12,000 men. Most historians say 30,000 men. And Yazid told him, when you gain control over Medina, for 3 days afterwards, make sure that you pillage and you loot and you kill and you take whatever you want. Tell all of your men in your army that everything and everyone is their personal property to do with as they wish for 3 days and nights, as a further humiliation to the people of Medina. They killed 1,700 of the Muhajirin and the Ansar who used to live in Medina. And they killed another 10,000 people there in 3 days and nights. And I won't go into the other details, you can figure them out. This is the blemish that I said exists in human and Islamic history. The incident of Al-Hara that Yazid was responsible for after the killing of Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam. This happened in Medina. In Mecca, we have Abdullah ibn Zubayr. He hates Ahl al-Bayt. He's the one who turned his father against Imam Ali Alaihissalam, and they led the fight and the battle of Camel. In fact, he hates Islam in general. All he wants to do is to become Khalifa one way or another. He seized the opportunity of the martyrdom of Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam. He saw that people everywhere have all of their hearts and their attention and their love for Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam. He wants to become Khalifa. He changed his tone. And now he was saying, I want to avenge Imam Al-Hussein. How could these people kill Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam? When the truth is, nothing could make him happier because there was one less competitor for him to become a Khalifa. So he started working from Mecca, but he had people working with him everywhere. So this is another uprising sparked by, at least outwardly, sparked by or seized as an opportunity by the enemies of Bani Umayyah. Now let's go back to Iraq. What happened in Iraq? The tragedy of Karbala happens. Karbala is not that far away from Kufa. The people of Kufa start talking about the tragedy of Karbala even before the armies of Ibn Ziyad come back with the heads and the captives. They start blaming each other. The news reaches of what has happened to Karbala. They start telling each other that you are the reason, no, you are the reason why this happened to Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam. Eventually, they start blaming themselves. They say, we were the reason. I am the reason. And they started gathering and organizing themselves, and they became under the leadership of 5 people in general. Those 5 people decided amongst themselves to choose one of them as their main leader. That man, his name is Sulaiman ibn Surad al-Khuza'i. This became a movement in history called Thawrat al-Tawabin. This was the movement of the repenters. Those who wanted to seek the repentance and forgiveness of God for having betrayed Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam after the tragedy of Karbala. It began right away after the tragedy. So Sulaiman ibn Surad spoke to them in long sermons, I don't have time to go through them, in which they openly, all of them confess that they feel responsible for having betrayed, for having failed Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam. And then he wrote letters to the people of Basra, and he wrote letters to the people of central Iraq, Madain, near Baghdad and those regions. They had people who were followers and lovers of Ahl al-Bayt in those regions. They told them, our intentions is to go and fight Bani Umayyah and either bring their entire rule down or die trying. Nothing else will make us feel like we can repent to God properly and ask His forgiveness. Those people wrote back to him, telling him, we are 100% with you, we feel the same way with you. Just tell us what to do. He told them, in a while, so they needed time to start preparing to enter into this battle with an empire of Bani Umayyah. He told them, year 65 of Hijrah, so Karbala happened year 61. Al-Hara happened year 63. He's telling them year 65, in that month, that day, in that location, Nukhayla, just outside, between Kufa and Karbala, we are going to meet, all of us, all of our supporters and armed men prepared to go and fight Bani Umayyah. So this is still a while to come. Ibn Zubayr sends his representative in Kufa to them, telling them, I want to join you. I have armies ready to come, but I need a bit more time to prepare them. Allow me to join you. I also want to bring down Bani Umayyah, to avenge Imam Al-Hussein, as we said, to seize the opportunity. They refused, telling him, we're not going to wait any longer. We're moving on the date we decided to move on. That's one group. Who else showed up at that time in year 64 in Kufa? Al-Mukhtar ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi. When the tragedy of Karbala happened, Al-Mukhtar was in jail. So he missed all of that. He came out, he could not believe what had happened while he was in jail. So he swore to God that he was going to hunt down and kill every one of the killers of Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam himself, whatever that took. And in fact, he is the answer of one of the prayers of Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam on the 10th of Karbala, the 10th of the Muharram. That deserves its own lecture too. He was against the movement of the Tawabin. The Tawabun were very good people. In fact, they were maybe a little too good. In what sense? They were worshippers. They were monks. So when Mukhtar came to Kufa, he told them, I'm starting to prepare a movement. But these people who are saying that we want to go and fight Bani Umayyah, they know nothing about war. They know nothing about managing an army. They know nothing about the strategies of battles. I am a warrior. I can lead something like this. These people are monks. All they do day and night is worship. Sulaiman ibn Sard is a worshipper. All the people with him, the leaders, they're worshippers. The reciters of the Quran, they're worshippers. They spend their whole time in the mosques. So this created a little bit of a disunity between them. So they did not agree. He could not convince them. They could not convince him. So they went on with their plan. Year 65, the day Sulaiman ibn Sard and his people, they gather at Nukhayla as agreed upon. When they reach there, about 2,000 men show up. What are you going to do with 2,000 men against Bani Umayyah? Sulaiman said, all we have, we're still going to go forth. Still, they were able to convince him. He sent a couple of his men back to Kufa. Just as a quick detail, when initially this happened, I can't go through all the details. One of the details, very quickly, is that they had a register of the people's names who were ready to participate in this with them, and they had 16,000 names. 2,000 of them showed up. At that time, they say Mukhtar had about 2,000 men on his side. There is a possibility that Mukhtar basically took 2,000 men from the 16,000. He was convincing them that he was more capable, but what happened to the rest? In any case, he sent a couple of messengers to Kufa. He told them, we'll try one last thing. Go to Kufa, yell in the streets, walking all the way to the mosque of Kufa, Ya li tharat al-Hussein. That's it. Don't say anything else. See who joins you. And whoever you gather, bring them to us here. So that's what they did. They went to Kufa and they yelled, Ya li tharat al-Hussein. Who will avenge Hussein? And they were able to double their numbers. 2,000 men joined by hearing these words. This is a very important slogan, by the way. Historians tell us this was the first time that these words were uttered. Ya li tharat al-Hussein. Every single other revolution that happened afterwards used the same banner, the same slogan, the same motto. And we have riwayat that say, when Imam al-Mahdi Ajjallahu Farajah reappears, this will also be his slogan. Ya li tharat al-Hussein. Who will avenge Hussein? In any case, these 4,000 men, they gather at Nukhayla. This is all they can gather at that time. They start their mission. They don't wait any longer. They go, first things first, they go to perform a ziyarah in Karbala at the graves of Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam and his companions. They spend a full day and a full night there, worshipping, praying, weeping, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness for having betrayed Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam. Telling Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that they're willing to do anything for God to forgive them their shortcomings for having failed the Imam. And then they head towards Damascus. They go to the heart of Bani Umayyah, the rule of the government of Bani Umayyah. That was, by the way, one of the main differences between their movement and the movement of Al-Mukhtar. Mukhtar never said, I will bring down Bani Umayyah. Mukhtar said, I will hunt down the killers, the specific killers of the Imam, and I will kill them one by one. They said, we want to bring down the rule of Bani Umayyah. So they headed towards Damascus. I will spare you the details of the way. There's a lot of details to go over. At some point, so while all of this is happening, Yazid has sent armies to fight them. According to some historians, he sent an army of 80,000 men to fight them. so that this serves as a lesson for anyone else, just like he did with Medina. So that this may serve as a lesson and a deterrent for anyone ever thinking of standing up to Yazid. A group of 4,000 men, just like he did with Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam. Led by whom? Led by Ibn Ziyad, the governor of Kufa, was now in charge of this army who was trying to intercept the Tawwabun headed towards Damascus. So Ibn Ziyad has two commanders under him. One day, inshallah, we'll talk more about those two men. For the time being, we'll just mention them by name. Sharhabil and Al-Hussein ibn Numayr. Al-Hussein ibn Numayr was one of the leaders fighting Imam Hussein on the 10th. He dispatches with a battalion, with a couple of thousands of soldiers, Sharhabil to go fight the Tawwabun. This is an organized army representing the full force of Bani Umayyah. And they are much closer to their borders, which means they can get ammunition and so on and so forth. Not like the Tawwabun, who are regular men, worshippers, without any backing, without any material means, in the middle of nowhere to them. In any case, so Sharhabil reaches them with his army and they defeat him. Sharhabil retreats quickly, goes back to Ibn Ziyad. Ibn Ziyad this time dispatches Al-Hussein ibn Numayr with 12,000 men to go fight them. They are about to defeat Al-Hussein ibn Numayr. They are the ones victorious in the battle. Very ferocious battles going on. So Ibn Ziyad dispatches Sharhabil once again with 8,000 men. So now these 4,000 men are fighting at least 20,000. And the historians tell us the fighting went on 3 days non-stop. And then in addition to that, from the other side, Bani Umayyah sent more thousands of soldiers who joined this group of 20,000. Not sure how many. I don't know the number. So they surrounded them in the middle of nowhere for the Tawwabun. And that's when their weakness started to appear. Their small numbers started to show. A lot of them died. A lot of their leaders were killed. And the Tawwabun, the ones who were left, started to retreat, and they left defeated, and they started to go back. On the way back, who do they encounter? They encounter two armies. One of them is an army that had promised to be with them from Basra. They found them on the way now. The other army is the one that's coming from central Iraq, from Madain, who had already also told them that they would be with them, but they did not show up on the proper time, proper date. So they told them, we were defeated, there's no more point in fighting, and they all retreated and went back home. That's the story of the movement of the Tawwabun. If we look at it from a religious point of view, that's not our point. They were good people trying to repent themselves. That's the point that is of concern. When we look at it from the lens of politics, from the military lens, from a social lens, clearly their movement was lacking. Anyone who studies it sees that they were perhaps ill-prepared. They did not have the specialty, the expertise required to lead this type of action against an empire like Bani Umayyah, backed by the Roman Empire, as we explained. They had people that they could have perhaps used, like Al-Mukhtara and others, specialists in the arts of battle and the sciences of battle. They did not. So there are a lot of things that we can criticize about what they did. So that we put aside. We're not saying that everything they did was right and correct. But there is something that they did that was right and correct. They woke up. Their conscience woke up after Karbala. And they were sincere and honest with themselves and with God. The way they went about it maybe can be criticized. If we look at what they said and what they tried to do, we see very clearly that there are perhaps a lot of lessons for us to learn from them. When Sulaiman ibn Surad spoke in one of his sermons, he was saying that We are of those people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prolonged their lives. He's given us long lives. We said there were 5 leaders in the Thawra of Tawabun. All of them were over 60. And he said we're all over 60. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prolonged our lives. We should have known better. We should have the wisdom and the judgment and the knowledge in life not to make foolish mistakes. One of our foolish mistakes was that we were preoccupied with purifying ourselves spiritually. And that was one of our pretexts for not helping the pure, excellent man who came to us, Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam. Under the guise that we were purifying ourselves, we're fasting and worshipping and reading Quran and praying, we did not help Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam. And he says, he's one of the witnesses that show us how the Imam tried to approach them. He said the Imam repeatedly came to us and in various means, day and night, asking us for help and support. We did not give him our souls. We did not give him of our wealth. We did not support him with our words. We did not even encourage people to join his cause. And the end result and the outcome of all of this was that he faced Bani Umayyah all alone with a few pure members with him, and they were thus killed. This is their recognition. This is their understanding of what happened in history and how they played a role. They understood the responsibility that they had to carry. This is something that we have to think about too. Now let me answer the questions that we asked, and then we continue with this story. What were our questions? What was the purpose of Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam? And was he successful or not? We have a narration in the ziyarah of Imam Al-Sajjad, Imam Al-Sadiq Alaihissalam. In one of the ziyarat of Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam, he talks to Allah in a dua and in a ziyarah. He tells Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about Imam Al-Hussein, بَذَلَ مُهْجَتَهُ فِيكَ لِيَسْتَنْقِذَ عِبَادَكَ مِنَ الْجَهَالَةِ وَحِيرَةِ الضَّلَالَةِ. The Imam alayhi salam, Imam Al-Sadiq says, what was the purpose of Imam Al-Hussein? Everything he sacrificed, everything that he did, we said it's not political, it's not social, it's not humanitarian. What was it then? Imam Al-Sadiq says, he sacrificed everything for your sake in order to deliver your servants from ignorance and from the loss and confusion of misguidance. The mission of Imam Al-Hussein, the point and purpose and objective of Imam Al-Hussein is guidance. He wants to guide the people. 10 times a day in our prayers, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. Oh God, we want your guidance. What is the purpose of Imam Al-Hussein? His entire sacrifice. He sacrificed his wealth, his companions, every one of his family members, himself, so that he guides the servants. He allows them to achieve guidance. He's the answer. What had happened to religion? We don't know, but we have an indication. This is the purpose of the Imam. Was he successful? This is the indication. Was he successful? How successful was Imam Al-Hussein in what he did? This I want to take from a passage from Imam Al-Sajjad Alaihissalam. When Imam Al-Sajjad goes back to Medina, he still had a lot of enemies. One day, one of the people from Quraysh, he asks right after the Imam comes back. Look at the cruel, look at the villainous mood, tone of this question. He comes to Imam Al-Sajjad alayhi salam in that state. He tells him, "Oh Ali ibn al-Hussein, there was this fight between your father and Yazid. Who won at the end?" That's the question. Who won? Who was victorious? Imam Al-Sajjad alayhi salam told him, when it will be prayer time, make sure to recite the adhan and the iqamah, and you will know who was victorious in Karbala. This is the answer of Ahlul Bayt. The purpose of the Imam was guidance. Was the Imam successful or not? The answer is there still anyone worshipping God or not? Is there still anyone praying? Is there still anyone reciting the adhan, the iqamah? If there is one person, it means Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam was successful. Now we have to look at the world today. 1400 years later, was Imam Hussein alayhi salam successful or not? Every time you stand to perform your prayer, remember Imam Hussein alayhi salam. We have a narration, we have a ziyarah. They come, some of the companions of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, they come to him. He asks them, how often do you perform the ziyarah of my grandfather Imam Hussein alayhi salam? They're shy. It's a very, very stuttering answer they give. They want to say once a year, but they meant physically. They actually go and perform the ziyarah. He told them, Ma ajfakum. How cold, how cruel are you with Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam? Then he taught them, I'm going to spare you the details. He taught them a ziyarah. He told them you should perform the ziyarah twice a day. So it might seem like it's a lot. So he taught them a very light, very short ziyarah of Imam Al-Hussein. My advice is to take the ziyarah, especially in the 10 days of Muharram. Take the 5 seconds that it will take, the 3 seconds it takes to perform the ziyarah of Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam before, after your prayers. Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam told them, all you need to do is to stand in the direction of Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam or the direction of the Qibla and say, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah, Assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That's it. But this forces you to remember Imam Al-Hussein, especially when you pray. If you're praying, it's because Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam sacrificed his life. Every act of worship you perform is because Imam Hussein did what he did. And this is further to us, a further question. When Sulaiman ibn Surad says, we did not help the Imam with our souls, we did not help the Imam with our money, we did not help the Imam with our words, we did not help the Imam by encouraging other people to join his cause. Let's ask ourselves the same questions. What have we done for the Imam? We're not going to sacrifice ourselves for the Imam. That opportunity has passed. How much of our money, of our wealth have we dedicated to these causes that make the Imam happy, that support the Imam? How much of our time, how much of our effort, how much have we encouraged others? How much have we made sure that we are aligned with Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam? In our prayers, in our hijab, in not listening to music, in not doing drugs, in doing the things that the Imam would be happy with, in doing the things that support the guidance that the Imam wanted to bring back to the world. And this only works, these words only work and only have an impact on you if you are a follower and you are a lover of Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam. If you're not, it won't do anything. So all of this is something simply to keep in mind. This is what the Imam was trying to do, and this is how successful he was in doing it. Now we have choices to make. Do we join the Imam or not? Those who were with the Imam, they knew the noble, honorable, excellent, pure values that the Imam was supporting. The greatest of them, the most exemplary of them, was Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. When all of the companions of the Imam were killed, when all of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam were killed, all of the men from the family of the Imam were killed, he came to the Imam, carrying the banner, the only one left with the Imam, him and his brother. He sought permission from the Imam to enter into the battle. Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam told him, if you enter the battle, my army will be scattered. There is no army. Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam calls him his army. Al-Abbas is the entire army of Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam. The Imam did not give permission to Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas to enter to fight the battle. Al-Abbas used another tactic. He told him, my heart cannot bear the sounds and the crying and the weeping of the children who want water. I can't take it anymore. Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam told him, then if you must, then go get them water and come back. This is the part, by the way, in the maqatil that we don't hear. Al-Abbas alayhi salam, he had gone to the water before, by the way. On the 7th and 8th and 9th of Muharram, Al-Abbas with a group of other companions, they managed to get to the water and they got small quantities of water back. But they're in the middle of the desert and there are children and there are women. They need water. So Al-Abbas grabbed the water bag and he rushed towards the Euphrates River. He pierced through the army. There were 4,000 soldiers positioned to guard the Euphrates from anyone reaching it. He removed them all from the river. And he entered into the water. And he scooped one handful of water. And here we have one of the greatest victories of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam. In that moment. This is what we've been talking about all along. The real victories are not on the battlefield. It's not on the battleground. The real victories are victories of the mind, are victories of the heart. How willing are you to defend your principles, your values? Who are you? What do you stand for? Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas threw the water back. Imagine the situation he's in, the circumstances that he's in. He threw it back and recited verses of poetry. What did he say? Ya nafsu min ba'd al-Hussein huni. He tells his soul, O soul, after Imam al-Hussein, you can become cheap. You're worthless. It makes no difference whether you exist or don't exist. This is Hussein, about to drink from the cup of death, and you are here about to drink cold water? I swear that this is not the values that I was raised with, nor is this the conduct of a man who has a firm belief. And then he grabbed the water bag, filled it, and headed back to the camp. Remember, Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam did not give him permission to fight. He gave him permission to get water and come back. That's all he was doing. Al-Abbas never fought. He was fighting to the extent that he can bring the water back to the camp. He rushed to the camp. They could not face him one-on-one. They could not face him by the front. They had to ambush. So they ambushed him from one side at some point until a man was able to cut off his right arm. He carried the sword with the left arm and continued on his way to the camp. Another ambush and they cut off his left arm. He continued to the camp by hugging the water bag. The historians say, then the arrows and the spears rained on him. And one arrow went into his eye. And one arrow went into the water bag. And the water bag spilled. And Al-Abbas stood still in the middle of the battlefield. No more arms to fight with. No water to bring back to the children. No eyes to see his way. A man came and he struck Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas with a pole of metal on his head. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas fell to the ground saying, As-salamu alayka akhi Aba Abdullah. For the first time in his life, he called Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam my brother. This is the upbringing of al-Baneen, his mother, who had taught him, Imam Al-Hussein, you call him my master, Sayyidi, Mawlai. Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam rushed. He got on his horse and he rushed to Abu al-Fadl when he heard these words from Al-Abbas saying, I bid you farewell, my brother, the army ran away from Imam Al-Hussein Alaihissalam. He yelled after them, saying, where are you running away now that you have killed my brother? He came to Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, who was lying on the ground. He saw him with an arrow in his eye, no arms, and the water spilled. Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam sat beside him, and he wanted to raise his head. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas told him, I swear upon you by the one that you worship, give me a few moments so that my brother comes to me, so that he may kiss me and I may kiss him, and he may smell me and I may smell him. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas can't see, he doesn't know who's there. He thought this is a man coming to cut off his head. He told him, just give me a few moments and then cut my head. Just wait for Imam Al-Hussein, allow me to say my farewell to the Imam. Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam told him, this is I, Hussein, your brother, the son of your father. And then he sat beside him and he lifted his head and put it in his lap. And Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas removed his head and put it back on the ground 3 times. Imam Hussein alayhi salam told him, Abu al-Fadl, why are you doing this? Keep your head in my lap. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas told him, now you are the one who's putting my head in your lap. In 1 hour, who's going to put your head in their lap? There's no one left. Imam Hussein alayhi salam got up. He tried to lift Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas to bring him back to the camp. Abu al-Fadl refused. He told him, I beg you, leave me in my place. He told him, why? Come back to the camp with me. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas told him, I promise Sakina and the children water. I'm too embarrassed to see them. I did not bring back the water. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam got up, left Abu al-Fadl in his spot. The historians say when he got up, he looked like a man with a broken back. He started walking back to the camp. Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam came out looking at him. Imam al-Hussein is not on a horse, he's just walking back, crying. يُكَفْكِفْ دُمُوعَهُ بِكُمَّيْهِ, wiping his tears with his sleeves. Zainab alayhi salam told him, Aba Abdullah, where is our brother Abu al-Fadl? You went to get him, you're coming back alone. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam did not answer her. He kept walking and he went to the tent of Abu Fadl al-Abbas and he pushed down the pole of the tent to answer her. Zainab alayhi salam said, وَضَيَعَتَنَا بَعْدَكَ, how lost are we after you, Abu al-Fadl? And Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam said, indeed, how lost are we without you, Abu al-Fadl? Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Assalamu ala al-Hussein wa ala Ali ibn al-Hussein wa ala awlad al-Hussein wa ala ashab al-Hussein wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi al-tayyibin al-tahirin.
Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Inshallah, before we get to go to prayer, if you can give me just a minute of your time. Most of you here, students, high school, some of you starting post-secondary education. Some of you are already working your jobs, you with the society, you see how it is here. Look around you, look to the people that don't come from this environment. One of the biggest challenges they have in the world here in the West today is the lack of purpose. They find themselves lost. Coming out of high school, where do I go? They finish their job at university, they finish their school at university, where do they go? What am I going to do with this? They work 40 hours a week. Why am I gaining all this money? And you see them, they have all this wealth, all these opportunities, and they're lacking purpose. They don't know where to go. If you can just take one thing from tonight, give yourself purpose, and make your purpose the Imam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. If I can trouble you, we're going to put away the chairs, inshallah, and get ready for prayer.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. صل على محمد. أشهد أن عليًا ولي الله. أشهد أن عليًا ولي الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. حي على خير العمل. حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
خذوني إلى مرقد للحسين. خذوني إلى مرقد للحسين.
سلام على أطيب الأطيبين وارث المرسلين الإمام الحسين. غريب بوادي الطفوف قتيل بظلم السيوف. خذوني إلى مرقد للحسين. خذوني إلى مرقد للحسين. خذوني إلى مرقد للذبيح. خذوني أضمد قلبا جريح. دعوني أناجي الشهيد الطريح. دعوني أقبل ذاك الضريح. خذوني إلى مرقد للذبيح. خذوني أضمد قلبا جريح. دعوني أناجي الشهيد الطريح. دعوني أقبل ذاك الضريح. لأبكي عليه وأهدي إليه دموع الأنين.
سلام على أطيب الأطيبين وارث المرسلين الإمام الحسين. غريب بوادي الطفوف، قتيل بظلم السيوف.